The exercise equipment Peloton had a great 2020. We saw the stock go from below $20 in March 2020, traded as high as about 170 at the beginning of 2021. But it's been a different story this year, with the stock trading at the time of recording just below the $100 mark. So are the good times over for Peloton, or actually is it something of a buying opportunity down at these levels? I thought this would be a really interesting one to take a look at. Clearly, it was quite a high-profile company during 2020 because of the various lockdowns we had around the world. Peloton became almost synonymous with exercising from home with its not particularly cheap range of exercise equipment. The stock price did really well, as you can see, going from those lows around $20 or just below $20 in March. And we had the run up to the all-time high so far, above 170 in the first couple of weeks of 2021. But it's been a different story this year. We've had their earnings came out just over a week ago, and we can see really volatile over the earnings, somewhat disappointing for the market. So I thought, let's take a look at it in a bit more detail. We have seen something, or had seen something of a bounce back off the May lows at $80. Is this current bout of weakness another buying opportunity? So as usual, I'll talk about some of the recent news around Peloton, then we'll come back onto the platform, take a look at things and the technicals in a bit more detail. Hello, I'm David Jones from Capital.com, and I thought this time around on our stocks channel, we take a look at one I think is interesting. Peloton, best known for their exercise bikes and their treadmills, of course, did really well last year because of the various shutdowns around the world. But what next? So as usual, in this video, I'll talk about some of the recent news. We'll look at the levels to watch. Then we'll jump back onto the charts and take a look at the technicals in a bit more detail and see what they say at the moment and see if there's an opportunity. As usual, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could click on subscribe, it does help support the channel. It means we can continue to push out lots of different content throughout the week and the various stocks that we look at. Right, let's get into it and take a look at Peloton in a bit more detail. So as I say, it's a US exercise company, best known for its bike and its treadmill products and the online streaming classes it runs, the exercise classes for those. The company was actually founded back in January 2012, so it's getting on for almost 10 years old, and it came to the market IPO'd in September 2019. So you've been able to buy stock in Peloton for a couple of years now. As I said at the beginning, it did well during the pandemic as various countries around the world were in states of lockdown. People wanted to exercise at home, so Peloton bikes did really well. The stock went from $20 in March 2020 to as high as $170 by January 2021. So a fantastic performance over those 9 months. But it's not been without controversy. In May of this year, the US warned users who had children and pets in the home to stop using the treadmill product. After one child died and almost 40 were injured, Peloton ended up recalling that product. We've had their latest earnings from the company out. Q4 earnings came out in August, and these were worse than expected. The market was expecting a loss of around 45 cents per share. It actually came in at $1.05 loss per share, so more than twice what the market was expected. And it also said that growth was slowing. It had a fairly cautious outlook for revenue, so we saw lots of volatility for the stock price, and it didn't really help investor sentiment. So the company has slashed the price of its products, retail price, by 20%. Of course, it faces increasing competition in the sector, plus also the fact, as lockdowns have lifted in various countries around the world, people are going back in and people are going back to using gyms. So that's perhaps taking away a lot of the demand, historical demand we've seen over the last 12 months for Peloton. So what next? Was it just something of a one-hit wonder during the pandemic, or actually is there further growth to come for the stock price? We'll take a look at the technicals in a sec. Let's talk about the levels to watch first. I think the immediate hurdle is the high set when the earnings came out. As I said, plenty of volatility over that day, but it traded as high as $121 for the stock and sold off fairly sharply. On the downside, we do have a lot of support. Again, we've got support from that earnings day coming in at $97. After that, support just the other side of 90. But as usual, to put some color on these numbers, let's take a look at the charts and the technicals in a bit more detail. So let's take a look at the technicals. I've put a 20-day moving average on for now. We'll take a look at that in a second. But as I say, a fantastic run. If you'd managed to hold them at various points through 2020, a great run to those highs. But it does show, I think, the importance of a profit isn't a profit until it's taken. You know, the stock is down $70 from those highs. So, not quite 50%, but it was 50% off in May of this year. But perhaps it is an opportunity. Looking at the moving average, as I always say, moving average is great in trending markets. When the price moves above the moving average, it's considered a buy signal. Perhaps a new trend is starting. When the price falls below the moving average, like we saw in January, February of this year, it's a suggestion that the trend is perhaps going to start going the other way. When markets go sideways, moving averages don't work as well. But the latest signal we had a bit of choppiness here, we can see in July and August. But the latest signal was on those earnings, 26th of August, as the price fell below the moving average. So a suggestion that perhaps the trend is down for now. If we take a look at the RSI down here, I think it's interesting because the RSI has just skimmed near being oversold. So it didn't go below 30%, technically didn't go oversold, but clearly it is at an extreme. The last time we had an oversold reading for Peloton was back here in May of this year, very oversold on that sell-off down towards $80. So it perhaps for people who are looking to see if a market's overreacted, it can be quite an interesting one to watch down here to see if it holds. Let's have a look at some of the levels to watch. So for me, it's interesting down at these levels. First of all, if we look at the low hit on that earnings day, 26th of August, traded down briefly below $97. Over the last couple of days, we've seen it down around 98. So I think, for short-term traders, maybe taking the view, well, perhaps we're going to see that old sort of $98 level, 98, 97, act as support. We had something of support on the way up here around 100. So this sort of zone here will be interesting to see if we see any strength coming in over the next couple of days. I think after that, if we saw it break below there, I think those watching support and resistance levels will probably be targeting these old lows from the middle of May, coming in ahead of $89. So I think we've got some interesting levels to watch in this 89 to 97 area of support to see if we get a bounce. From a trend point of view, it's a bit of a mixed picture. We did have a small recovery trend chugging along from May. Has, I think, run out of steam since then. And if we pick up on the old downtrend from the all-time highs, that broke in June. So we have had, it looks like that correction has ended, but the recovery as well has stalled since then. So I think for me, it is all about these support levels for now. I think shorter term traders may be waiting to see if we get confirmed strength ahead of here. And I think if we didn't see those 26th of August lows taken out, so if we didn't see it trade below 97, then perhaps the short to medium term objective is for a run back up to have a look at these old highs around the 120 mark. So it's an interesting one to watch down here. Lots of support below where we are now. Fairly directionless over the last 3 months, I suppose we say, but perhaps we see something of a short-term bounce for Peloton off these old, or not so old, earnings lows. So worth keeping an eye on, I think, but medium term, not much in the way of trends at the moment. That's it for the update on Peloton. We'll see how they fare over the next few weeks and months. We'll come back to them and do an update, but for now, we'll leave things there. So for me, David Jones and Capital.com, good luck with your investing. For more trading videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel.